I would like to present Polonca Lovšin, who is actually here representing a collective. And the collective is called KUD Obrat, and they have been doing many different projects in relation also to public space. And she will present one of these projects, which is called Beyond the Construction Site. And the project itself started in August 2010, and it's still ongoing. Actually, next week they are celebrating 10 years of existence. So this is very long process in which she can really share a lot how it evolved, what was the initial points, and what is gonna happen next. And before giving word to Polonca, I would just like to mention that she's also an architect and artist based in Ljubljana, and she actually completed her PhD of visual arts in 2015 with focus on artistic research at Bauhaus University at Weimar in Germany. And she, in her practice, is very much interested in self-organized initiatives, and she searches for alternative ways of living and working in the perspective of climate change. Please, Polonca, the floor is yours.
Anna presented me. I'm here presenting a project that we initiated as a group. It's called KUD Obrat, and we are a group of artists, cultural workers. Actually, we are 4 of us, and we gathered in 2006 through another project we did with Urška, one of the members together, and then we realized that we are really sharing the interest in problematics of public space, of democratization, lack of democratization, and in some way rules that are shaping it. So in the project we started then together as a practical example that is still going on, also on our surprise actually, because each year we have a contract for this piece of land for 1 year. So in case the municipality who owns the plot will sell the land, we have to move away. So it started in 2010 with the promise to be there 1 year. And it started also, maybe it's important to say, in the frame of one cultural event, and it's called, it's a festival of performing arts, Young Lions, translated, Mladi Levi, which is organized by Zavod Bunker, who was also co-producing the beginnings of our project. And we got the permission to enter the site, this fenced off plot of land, which was a construction site, non-active, actually in the city center. And I prepared one map where we can really see that this location is a primal location of in Ljubljana. It is located, this green square, you see. It's here. It's located in the opposite to the central railway station, and really the walking distance, I mean, this is already called a city center, and you can easily walk to the old town. It's 15 minutes or walk, and on this way, really in the beginning, is this piece of land that we didn't occupy, but we have agreement with municipality, as I said. It's important context for this, that we got this land, that we are still there, was the economic crisis of 2008, which actually we started in 2010. So maybe what was obvious in Ljubljana was that a lot of construction sites somehow stopped. So they were already there, but because of the crisis, a lot of building companies collapsed. There was no money on the market for building, and somehow all these numerous construction sites were closed. They had no, the Municipality of Ljubljana has no policy to somehow open these fences, even though there is, the construction site is not active. And so we were faced with a lot of fences which were then used as stands for commercials, for jumbo posters. But actually behind there was empty space which was not used by anyone. And the second important fact of this, our garden, community garden, was also the fact that at that moment in 2000, it started in 2006, but a new mayor of Ljubljana started to arrange the rules of gardening in Ljubljana. I have to say that the gardening in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, because Ljubljana is a capital, has a long tradition. And it's based on individual gardening. So community gardens are not a model, but individual gardening was really spread, was well organized at certain points, and through time, in 80s and then in 90s, when the politics changed, so the Slovenia became independent, this area was not managed really well. It was spreading illegally. This appearance, as you see here on the picture, is one very, very loudly discussed allotment gardening area close to famous architecture of Slovene, most somehow well-known or recognized architect Jože Plečnik, the cemetery. So really in front of this beautiful monumental architecture, there was this self-organized gardening area with sheds, with water containers for catching the rainwater, with the material of leftovers of wood, piece of wood, plastic, and so on. And it was one of the first gardening areas that that was removed. And I'm not criticizing so much the approach of municipality. I mean, the idea of municipality to arrange this area, but what was really clumsy, badly done was this. The steps they were doing, and in the beginning, for example, we see in 2007 they cleared really a lot of areas, gardening areas, which were there for 50 years or 40 years, really long lasting colonies or culture which was going on there of gardening were removed. And then for some years, there were no replacement for these places. So I was doing a research, and around 2000 gardening plots were removed. And the first new designed by the city happened in 2010. So 3 years of total lack of possibilities for gardening. This was also in favor, I mean, if I can say this was a bad luck, but a good luck for our project that through the process turned into a community garden. What we knew from the beginning, so we didn't intend to do a community garden here. What we wanted to do is was kind of a critique of existing situation. So somehow degraded area, which was caused by this fenced off construction site, which affected the whole area. And also somehow we were interested in, I mean, we were not just interested, but we knew that we want to activate people who are living really around this area to join us, to think of this space as a new space, as a future of this space. What could this space be? What they want, what they need in the neighborhood, and if they are maybe, hopefully, interested to join the process. And this, what we are seeing is the image of first meeting is really to 10 years ago, when we were asked, we did a setting with chairs, and we put invitation in all post boxes on the apartments, and somehow wanted to talk with people what they would like from this place if they would have a chance to do something, what they would like to do with that. And through the process, this was the first meeting, but then we had several meetings and talkings on the street with people who, passers-by, with people who were living in these apartments. What became clear is that all wanted that this place stays green. That was the kind of the common, seeing the common wish, somehow the not more than articulated. So the green space is something that they were lacking in this area. And I have to say, really the new apartment block apartments around are really built really one close to another with no greenery in between. And this strangely fenced off construction site became really somehow a green area already then when we started. And as I said, we entered the site with the permission of municipality for to use the site for 2 weeks. And we did a very symbolic door. I mean, we did a symbolic entrance. So we built a door. We gave ourselves a name, which means, or like in English, something that is not just construction site, but it's also have this imaginative idea of something that is beyond this. And the process was very simple and similar to all these kind of processes when you somehow come to a new place and you start to maybe domesticize it. And this means a lot of hours of cleaning. So the cleaning was one of the rituals we were doing with people who joined us. Who joined us is important to know in the beginning. I think in the beginning, we were more or less initiators, and maybe few enthusiasts who liked the project as such. They were not living around, and really little people from the neighborhood. So we were constantly somehow lacking the people around the area, and we felt it's something is not really maybe communicated well from our side. This we were hoping, of course, we started the process, we were hoping, of course, at one point maybe they will join us. So cleaning the site, and then also taking care of self-grown plants, because already when we entered, the site was maybe 6 years already empty, non-active. We invited a botanist who was showing us around, and we discussed the local plants. He showed us the trees who were still really small, and we then, through the process, protected them. So we didn't want to, we somehow wanted to keep as much as possible what is there, but of course with some instructions. There were also some invasive allergic plants that they suggested to be removed, and yeah, we somehow navigated through this by mostly keeping what's there, especially taking attention to the trees. And what was also typical for the situation was that because it was construction site, they removed the first layer of soil. So mostly there was gravel. So it was a hole. And also all these leftovers that were there were mainly kind of construction site leftovers. So a lot of glass, iron rods, concrete, asphalt, insulation material, because in the future, this here is a plan that in the future they will build a new apartment block. But it still didn't happen, as you see. Okay, and this was also the last action in the frame of these 2 weeks when we have allowance, was also introducing art works or art actions. For example, I did one art intervention with a goat. So I spent one day in a goat in this framed area, and I decided that I will follow the goat and draw the map where she's moving. And after this map, I will do a proposal for a planning of this area. Of course, this was just a provocation somehow to provoke this typical approach to urban planning, which is somehow in this Western culture based on greed and functionality and really intensive use of every millimeter of space. But what brought this project into our group was the discussion: do we need a plan for this site? Could we maybe develop the plan without the site without really a plan? You have to be aware that we are 2 architects, so you know it's hard for architect not to have a plan. But we decided without a plan. So all the things we will build, construct, arrange will be discussed on the site directly. So this is important. We saw through our practice this is very important. This discussing on the site directly. It helps really to somehow to come to a kind of decisions that are all somehow agree with, mostly. And the process of this, how it turned into community garden, I think the process had 2 stages. First stage, from the beginning to the next spring, which was, we were mostly working there alone, as I said, enthusiasts, our core group, really spending a lot of time, mostly all weekends, working with what was there, using a lot of, there was also a lot of wood as leftovers, and we were building this kind of plots and cleaning, still talking about how to develop everything. And then in spring 2011, quite desperate already, we decided that we will try with a new tactic. So we decided maybe people would understand if we would articulate this differently, this green space. And we created invitations to invite people around the area to make there on this site your own garden. And this was breaking through this wall we had all the time with the neighbors who were not joining, even though on the street they were all the time welcoming the project and saying how nice and so on. So as we see after this invitation, this is the first meeting. These are really residents from the neighborhood, and they joined in a large number, and that's, I say, this is a moment when our project turned into a community garden. So it was obvious that people, maybe like with cooking, with food, I think with gardening, they also relate really easily with gardening. This is something that somehow they experienced all through their grandmothers, grandfathers. A lot of Slovenes in the past, they were living in the rural areas, so they have this knowledge also with them. And also I think the raising awareness around food, which is present in younger generations also. So this is how then everything developed. We were constantly defending the idea of a community space to community garden. It's not so typical community garden, as we realize there are many community gardens that you don't have your own plot, but here we are somehow in between. Each family or participant has its own plot, but of course we have a lot of community land, like this concrete plant for also some playground area. We share the tools and the water, which we have a container. There is no running water on the side. So this is somehow probably by definition in between community garden and individual or shared space maybe. And what was of course the challenge is how we will be organized, and we didn't invent, we were not the first one starting this kind of initiative. So of course we were looking at other initiatives and having also before we started, also like few years before, we were inviting them to present their initiatives. So what we somehow figured out is that self-organization, even though we want it very democratic, we need to have some rules. And somehow through time, still now, this last year, for example, this year we didn't meet because it's of pandemic, but last year we still changed some rules. These rules are all the time, every spring are discussed and changed if we see are not really relevant anymore, or they are not respected, or somehow we think they're not needed. Infrastructure, as I said, we have no running water, so we have some of a few water containers. Also, we collect water from one house. This is neighboring house on the side, but it's not really a lot of rainwater, so we have to order the water and pay for that. In the last year, we got kind of a subsidy from the company, so they 5 fillings are for free, and then we have to pay. What I think maybe in broader sense, it's interesting to probably define what, I mean, try to think of what this place is. And for example, it's definitely experimental ground for different architectural design oriented practices. So in the beginning, immediately in 2011, we had a participatory design workshop with students of architecture and design. So how to develop a common project, not like authorship is of all of us. And that is, so that it's useful for the site, but also it was very useful for the students also, because mainly in architecture, they are in the studios, not really having any practical experience. So they were cutting wood and nailing and screwing things with screwdrivers. And so I think this working together and doing things with hands, it's one of important aspects we are practicing here. Also, like pedagogy, which Clare was mentioning. So we also have, we had one, at the moment it's not going on anymore, but of course, children are super welcome. And we have a lot of young families at the moment who joined the garden, especially because they are aware that it's great if children can learn by touching, by really planting things and see them growing, and then understanding how much care one thing needs to grow, and they appreciate this. So I think parents are aware of this a lot. And also we had really great summer school led by an architect, a friend of mine, Nina Vastel. They were combining, they were really 1 week not sleeping on the side, but they were coming regularly, also having their own plot, but also building things cleaning things. So really working physically on the site and learning through that. One special thing, of course, is focused on gardening, ecology, soil, and all this knowledge that is connected to this. So we try to invite a lot of different people who have this knowledge to pass it to our gardeners. Many of them, also me in the beginning, we didn't have any knowledge on growing plants. So most everyone, I mean, we have some older ladies, but we have a lot of younger generation which want who is not aware of how to, or who doesn't have a knowledge, or maybe they have some knowledge in the past but they didn't really practice. So they're really appreciating some kind of instructions or suggestions. The only rule we have related to gardening is that we don't use any chemicals, but we want to keep it open as much as possible. So everyone can decide which kind of practice it will use. It can be permaculture, it can be any traditional kind of gardening. So we don't want to interfere with this. We also introduced bees. It was very interesting situation for the community because people were really, I mean, we had really long discussion because beside knowledge that we all know how important bees are for pollination, of course there is a lot of fear of being bitten and is this safe for children and so on. So we had really a long discussion before somehow we agreed we will have bees on the site. Also at the moment we don't have a beehive because on the right side is an urban beekeeper who was having 2 beehives on the site, but he's so busy in the last years. He has beehives really on the roofs on public buildings in Ljubljana. So somehow we need to track a person who would be interested to have a beehive on our garden. And this is like the first harvest. Okay, but maybe maybe just a short, like I'm going toward the end. So what is this space? What is for us important, or what we realized in the second step somehow of this project is that, of course, one is self-organization of us being inside, but we want to keep it open space also for the people who didn't join, who are not gardening there. So a lot of our effort in last years is oriented toward this. So one of the things we started in the beginning is that each Thursday afternoon in the gardening season, so from May to September, we have open hours. So one of the gardeners is there and is there open to answer questions, to explain how we are organized, what we are doing, and so on. So the garden is open once a week. And also we want to have a lot, I mean, we try to organize many public events that are, of course, open to the public, but they are somehow also not oriented only to gardening, but especially what our initiative is interested in is what, for example, what this place is this a public space, or is it a shared space, or is it inclusive or exclusive space? How to open it more? I mean, what is the politics of the city toward, for example, we call our contracts is a typical contract of temporary use. So what is temporary use of space is not really practiced in Ljubljana, and we were hoping that with our initiative we'll somehow accelerate this temporary use, but it's obviously not accelerating much. So why not? Where are the problems, or what is the where are the obstacles, if there are. When we were celebrating 5 years, we were also organizing a flea market and some other events. So we moved from the garden, in front of the garden, what we intend to do also next week. On 22nd of August, we are celebrating now the 10th anniversary. So we want to communicate with the neighborhood, with the neighbors who are not part of our garden. This is one of our focuses, or somehow kind of our awareness behind the whole initiative also. And yes, bringing topics that are important to us and somehow share and network with similar initiatives. For example, here we had guests from Maribor who were 1 year later in 2012, 2 years actually later, but maybe they started in 2011. They also founded a community garden in Maribor in frame of cultural capital. So it was very interesting. So how you, in a frame of cultural capital, were able to promote a community garden as an important model, and they succeeded. So it was interesting to hear also this story. And constantly, because we are artists, architects, we are also inviting other artists, architects, or other cultural workers to somehow reflect together with us what is this place, and how we can continue with it. And this is maybe for the last 2 slides. It's the question how to continue is something which is now very present also because of the celebration of 10 years, I think. And okay, maybe two more words. I think the heart of our site is also a fireplace. We have a fireplace which is we somehow, there was an empty place in the middle, and we just started to burn fires there, and we of course prepare food sometimes. It's very undone. It's still like these 2 stones and something what was laying around, but it's really some a thing that connects us all through food and through this enchantment of fire as such, and of course children love it and start to burn wood and play around it. And maybe I wanted somehow also to relate to the topic of this discussion. Of course, one of the important things when we are doing things, where we are gathering, is also food. And we practice food sharing. So we invite everyone to prepare food and bring it, and we just share it. So for the 5th anniversary, we have these delicious cakes you see on the table from different neighbors. And this is happening still, all the time, except of course for pandemia also somehow influence this for the future. Or for the moment, our celebration is now, we invited people to bring food, but there are so many restrictions. I'm not sure we will be able to have food for this celebration. And food, as you know, is an important, somehow cohesive, collective social element, which maybe you relax and start talking also serious things around eating food. So it's not just having fun, but also it can stimulate a very fruitful, serious conversation. And the last 2 slides I was mentioning, this is a aerial photo from one neighbor of ours, who is living opposite to the garden in 2012. So as you see, the trees are quite small. The garden is beautiful, and we can see almost everything. And this is the view from last year, September 2019. So what we are facing is that, of course, 10 years is a long period, and the trees they were small when we started, now are really huge trees, and the space is becoming a bit really problematic for gardens, because the vegetables are not growing really well because of so much shade. And I think somehow the nature or itself, or this wild growing, is somehow directing maybe this project into a new direction. We started to, of course, to think that maybe, of course, trees are very important for the cities as well. Of course, a forest for the whole area, but trees for the cities are very valuable, and maybe this somehow transforming it into kind of park forest is somehow the future of our, I mean, we will discuss this in the future steps, but it's really something we are thinking of last 2 years. And also participants, they recognize that that gardening, maybe it's not anymore a relevant thing here, even though, as I said, many people relate with gardening on really easily, and then maybe step into this process of community. That somehow I conclude with this last slide.
Okay, thank you very much, Polonca, for this
Thank
really
you
nice
so
talk.
much.
I really like how you kind of solve this question that Claire was posing, like how to continue, you know, and then you kind of showed the whole continuation with the garden, but then again also that moment when the garden becomes kind of a forest or a park, and then how it actually transforms itself in a way. I think this is really nicely how it actually came together with all what it was actually previously said. So now I would actually again open the floor if somebody else has a question for Polonca. Okay. Merve?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think Polonca is still sharing her screen, so
okay,
I can't...
sorry. I'm in love with the forest. Okay. Yeah.
No, this was such an amazing, it was so amazing. I mean, I have a couple of things to say, and I had a question, but I don't have it anymore. Because the first thing that I thought, I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and my biggest complaint about living in the Netherlands was complaining Dutch people. Okay. And in a way here, I look at your exercise of cleaning the space, and I take it as the most beautiful complaining experience. Because like, you don't just complain, but you do something with it, you know. Yeah. You clean the gravel, you clean the insulation material, you clean the broken glasses and everything. So that's like, I mean, I've been thinking about this, like how, like what, the way of complaining. Yes. Because I think we're also entitled to complain, but how do we complain? Like, what do we do with it? And this is also something that I ask myself all the time. Like, don't make your complaint just a complaint, because you're only making yourself more angry and coming back to Claire, like the cycle she showed. But like, make it into something else. I mean, this may also be like, again, a professional thing, like I have to do something with it, but still, like, yes, the cleaning as complaint is really amazing. The second thing I wanted to say is I love the goat exercise, because like in my grandfather's, like in my village, goat is the most, it's a mountain village. So the goat is very important because it shows you the way. Like you really, like if you are lost, you follow the goat because it will show you how to go. Or like if you want to make a new road, like follow the goat because the goat will know exactly which way to go and everything. So I also don't think the goat as the exercise with the goat as not something not planned, but it is very planned actually, but in a way to follow a different kind of logic. So I really appreciate that too. And then my last question actually was like, well, I was going to ask you about ownership and what do you think of this place, but I think there's no question anymore because I mean, after you showed us the last slide, like it is the ownership question is solved. Like the trees are there or the plants, and actually like I mean, this is a thing from Turkey, but like once you plant trees and they are at a certain height, according to the rules in Turkey, for instance, like the municipality or the government, whatever level it is, they can't cut them anymore. Like they are not allowed to cut them anymore. So I don't know if this kind of regulation exists in Slovenia, but maybe you can. Maybe they are not allowed to cut it anymore.
Yes. I don't know. I definitely I mean, thank you. Can I comment? Thank you for all these amazing words. But exactly with trees, it became. I mean, you know, we remember also our kids, for example. Now you see how time is passing. Of course, 10 years it's little, but it's a lot also. So my son was 3 when we started, and now he's 13. He's bigger than I am. He's taller than I am, you know. So in these 10 years, also the trees, which were really, we had to protect them, not to smash them by walking around, the small trees. Now the trees are tall and they're beautiful. And the climate they are doing there, it's wonderful. No, you know, you enter this site and it's a hidden secret place. And yes, we of course we don't know how this will all finish, but we really think of maybe to some tactics to maybe to buy the land with some land and fund a land trust. I mean, these are very, 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 how would you say, ambitious ideas, but we are thinking of this because our audience, our network is huge. I mean, how many people entered, was there and left, and with, you know, like how many people were involved in this initiative in all these 10 years? It's an enormous number of people. Also, of course, through time, I mean, we got quite a lot of media attention. Of course, we are ourselves, we are a little bit articulated, so we write text, we somehow we organize roundtables and so on. So it's not really unknown place, but of course, it's also not supported in any other way than the land from the municipality. So it's a free work. I mean, we try to fund ourselves with some cultural small artistic projects, but for this kind of large open space, there is what they give, it's really money that you just spend for in 1 month maybe. So it's so yes, the future is how to maybe to bargain with the city to keep it, or at least one small piece of it, or I don't know. This is our, I think, challenge.
That's not amazing.
Tanya.
Okay. Unmute. Okay, because it's in my neighbor, so I know the story. Very nice presentations. It's nice to hear all this history in few minutes. What question is, why you need to buy the land? Because it's already it's a municipality is the owner, so it means that the city is the owner. So, and you say we need the land because it's there are so many people involved in this. So if it's part of a municipality, why you need to be privatized?
Yes, I think it's the worst solution is to buy the land, of course. But what is with this land is that it's highly economical, profitable piece of land in the city center, in front of the train station. So they will not get rid of it very easily, you know. And of course, the best would be to somehow negotiate it for free, to keep it as it is, you know, like to keep it there, not being built. But I think it's very maybe idealistic to think of that. So we will, of course, we will try not to buy and keep it. But if the last instance, maybe it's also the idea we could maybe keep it in that way, that we buy it. This is as you say, it's a problematic. I agree in this way of buying, but if this will be maybe in the end the only way, or already this will be an enormous approach, because of course we will need to fundraise and to I mean, this, I don't know even how much is worth this piece of land.
Yeah, exactly. This, I think that if you if you privatize this piece of land, so you're going in one direction. Maybe it's interesting what happened, but I think it's also in this city there are more places like this. So you can okay, now you have all these big trees, but so you can start some other piece of land and start growing all this stuff again. So
Sure,
why not?
Sure.
So
Sure. These are options, but I think maybe what is a coincidence or a situation now here is that, of course, these projects are maybe 3-4 years. This temporary use of space, and now this project is here 10 years, and I think for us it becomes maybe now really a kind of ground for fight for it in a different way. I just leave it and go gardening somewhere else. So maybe this history we had, and the history with people we somehow established, I think it's a lot of potential in this somehow. No? So yes, of course, or it's possible.
Thank you.
To go to another location.
Okay, I would just like to say that in possible forms, do you want to speak?
Sorry?
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of write it in a way to ask if I could speak, but it just kind of, to my mind, it also kind of seemed this relationship to what is being now talked about vis-a-vis. I mean, okay, first let me just congratulate you, Polonca, on this whole project. I mean, this, I'm also amazed at this durational work in a sense, and this living with precarity, and that is something that immediately to my mind comes across. And in a way then also to kind of think about this question that Tanya, you posed about why is it so difficult to move to another place and a location, and thinking that in a way it relates so much to the ideas of migration that you are talking about, that this kind of precarity and this kind of living without a kind of security of what the history and the relationship to land and its people is going to mean, and to move, and to, of course it is easy to grow trees in another location, but what happens to the relationship that is built with that piece of land. And I mean, I was just also thinking about this trivia that I read maybe a day or two ago about how De Beers, the diamond company, they acquired land in South California because of the diamond rush, and because there were too many diamonds in the world, they donated the land to the city on the condition that the city would not, or the state would not mine it. And so there is a De Beers forest reserve because the state cannot mine the land. but also then thinking about this relationship of what is valuable and what is made valuable. And that relationship is also in such a state of flux right now, that we are actually now talking about trees being more valuable than, say, diamonds, or food being more valuable than the relationship of maybe where it's coming from is important. But I think this idea of the histories and the localized histories are kind of becoming so much more important. So, I mean, just, yes, commenting on the overall day that I have spent with you all, it has been really amazing and lovely. So also taking the opportunity to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Yes, Merve, please.
I get very excited. Sorry, I have to say something more, but I mean, it's really amazing that you have managed to take care of this place for like 10 years and really like talking about gardening and the gardener, like all these things. It's really so amazing. I mean, I can't really, I don't know how to put my respect in words. So the thing is like, and as long as you have the tools, are there ways to push for this to, in a way, influence really local understanding, politics, everything? And again, like another example that I wanted to mention, which doesn't exist anymore, but it used to exist like in the 19th century, and a friend of mine is working on this, so that's, she actually finished her work and I'm happy to share with you. She was looking at forms of ownership in the Ottoman Empire, in the late stages of Ottoman Empire. And she looked at how ownership of farms were defined during modernization. And she actually found out that ownership was defined in a very temporal way, but then based on the way that people were working the soil with the crops. So as long as you stay in that space and crop the soil, you can stay. So this was really something that it was in the regulations. And this also reminds me, for instance, the squat law in the Netherlands, which doesn't exist anymore, but it used to exist. Like as long as you use the space, it is yours. So I'm really curious, like if there is a way to do this kind of discussion with the municipality, also because like you live there, you're from there, you have citizenship, you know, you have the power to negotiate this thing. Please don't get me wrong, don't take me like I'm advising or something, but I'm really thinking about these, like, how is it possible to, you know, even like show examples and like the possibility of this place basically.
Polonca, we cannot hear you.
Yes. Yes, yes, I think it's, we have to really go into it. I have to say also through maybe two things, commenting 10 years. Actually, we wanted in the beginning to step out at a certain moment, because we thought it's maybe this is a good way for the project, that you don't somehow, you know, you all the time are keeping a hand over it somehow, and maybe it's not good to that one initiative is doing this. So we were thinking maybe we should step out, but in the process there were also, like always, ups and downs. So it also depends which people join and how much enthusiasm how much they involved in the project. And somehow we are still there because we feel, I tell you, responsible for the site, for the people, for everything. Maybe it's also, I mean, it's good to question also this, I think, not to take it as a granted that you are there. But like I tell you, we thought maybe after 3-4 years we will not be needed there anymore. But we have now the contract with the city. People didn't want to form kind of association with which they could be in contract with the city. Also, the city wants that this is a cultural institution, so it's hard to prove you are a cultural initiative, artistic initiative. They wanted that it's this. So somehow we are involved officially with the city, and somehow we are still there. But now this challenge of where to go is also a big thing for us. So we,
if there are not any immediate comments or questions at the moment, I would actually like to invite you to kind of maybe comment on this notion of like what has been present throughout many actually of the presentation. It's like when we frame it within the art field, or when we call it an art, is it making things more harder or more easier? Like, in a sense, does it make us do certain things which would not be like, if you have something that is framed as a cultural initiative, then the city will think more about destroying it rather than if it's just a garden. So in that terms, also like Claire was mentioning, like these moments of having experience within these art institutional frameworks, and then what happens when you kind of bring in this kind of unlearning practice, which is quite experimental, like what breaks in between, and are still there some potential. So I would ask each of you to briefly comment this, and then yes, it would ideally be that I invite you for a dinner, but on some other opportunity, hopefully.
maybe I can start just for example, what I think somehow we don't want to claim really loudly this is an art project. We have difficulties in our group to define it, but definitely what we credit culture for is how we started. So we started in the frame of this performing arts festival, and I think a culture and art can open some doors more easily than not. So we think this was an important element of that we were part of this festival, and we were also part of. I mean, we are artists and architects by our education, but it doesn't matter. We entered the site through the cultural format, which helped us for sure. This is maybe my comment.
I don't know if this is also the question for me, because it seems that I am more in art than anything else. I don't have any other, I speak in this language, but it was before Vidha said that you mentioned something that you are not sure about migrants and connection with food and migrants. Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that food, that they are same. Food and migrants, they are same. Because I have this negative, this positive and negative, just because I want people, when they see this, they start questioning ourselves. And I think that with art, you can ask some questions which you will not ask yourself. Like I think that maybe, or I hope so, that after, when people see my work, migrants, they check from where is their food. Maybe they don't stop buying tomato from China. I don't think it's okay. It's something. So it's influence somehow daily life. Yeah. So that's yeah. I just don't want to say that it's the same. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Claire, Merve, and Vidha, do you want to say this, or you are closing?
No. Well, somehow for me, mainly because I have been an artist or practicing art mainly, to me it really seems like the go-to solution for anything, in the sense that if somebody is facing some kind of a problem, I feel like art really is this is a lot more flexible zone, which can open and close, and it has these ways of expanding, and more so now than before, with the kind of projects that one sees around. It really feels that is one vehicle that can surpass many checkposts, in a sense. In the kind of food that I've grown up eating, there is this particular dish which is known as paratha, which is usually it's like dough that's stuffed with any kind of a filling, and then it's cooked. It's rolled into a flat bread kind of a thing, and then cooked on a skillet. And it's like the go-to recipe if you have anything left over. Like you don't know what to do now with this leftover food. You just make it into a paratha. So it's like, so to me, art, and I'm sure like other artists won't be very happy listening to this analogy, but to me, it really feels like it has the possibility of somehow protecting that practice, which does not find its the same kind of care in its own field. And yeah, I mean, that's perhaps what I would like to add to this.
Okay, I'll say something. No, I mean, for me also I always say like I'm not an artist. I didn't study art. So I don't know. I mean, this is the difficult part. Like, I don't know how to really relate to and since I'm in Hong Kong for a while now, I understand what it might mean, and it's really crazy. But it's also in terms of showing the potentials of it, it's also crazy what art can do. But also, I also think that it's more about trying to get out of what you have learned, especially from my own background. What I can say is like I've had a formal education, and I always had a problem with it. Like I always had problem with what I had at home and at school, at work, and this always like had to fight with each other continuously. And where I find let's say discomfortable comfort is like when I cross over and to kind of meet the other and try to understand the other and try to find my ways in that other, and also try to change myself. So I really take it as a personal yeah, like if I can change myself, then I can also maybe change others. Like, so I try to continuously change myself, and through that I hope I also change others. So nothing is like what Vidha was saying, like you don't take for granted, and you kind of work for it. And the idea of this is something that I learned recently, actually, from a school in the first years of post-colonial time in India. The idea of living knowledge. This is something that I'm like trying to get into more, and like how can knowledge be living, and how can I kind of change myself and like keep learning and keep trying to change things around. So really from my own perspective, like this is how I see things. And from other sides, like architecture, arts, politics, law, all of it, like nothing is to take for granted and nothing is to dismiss, and everything is to try to find ways to make things work in the way we want it to be. Whatever they may be, like very small, very big, doesn't matter.
how to follow this. Those were such clarifying words. And thank you. I mean, I totally like benefit from going last because I get to like hear from all of your amazing responses, I guess. Yeah, in keeping with that, I think definitely that space of like undiscipline is definitely something really interesting, and how, especially like looking at, you know, even just in this kind of image of the tree that's kind of emerging for me, of like something that, you know, is generated from the seeds of this kind of thinking and learning together, and then it's nourished by the soil and then it grows, but then also it has this kind of ambiguity of potentially then also shading and crowding out other kinds of growth. So it's that sense of, I think, what I'm also hearing of like a productive discomfort with staying in the shade for too long, and then thinking about how important it is that we can continue to move between spaces of comfort and discomfort, where I definitely agree with Merve that we keep learning and also challenging ourselves to think within these different frameworks. And if art is the space that allows us to do that, great. But I know that sometimes it can be very stifling as well because of the piles of shit that it also brings with it. So just kind of thinking about how we can remain, as you say, self-critical, but also of maybe also making ourselves uncomfortable in a way that also pushes us to continually, self-reflect, but also recognize the levels of support and dependency that we require from different frameworks of thought and practice. I'm definitely so excited also by what I'm learning and hearing today from fields of design and architecture, and understanding again that art is not an exceptional space to be able to experiment and think outside the given. So I'm really excited by also maybe that it's a space of cooking that is the thing that brings us together rather than necessarily any one discipline. And it's perhaps cooking up those disciplines and into the collective soup, I think that Vidha said very early in this session of, and maybe that's the thing that we're drawing on for nourishment. And I'm just like super grateful for this kind of space, which is the one that I think I'm the most interested in, where we can come together and find a shared vocabulary.
Okay, thank you, Claire, very much for this really like closing words. So I just want to thank everybody who participated, the speakers, and also the audience that stayed with us for these many hours. And I know it's very difficult in these kind of conditions, being like stuck to the screen and all that, but still I really felt really great during the whole conference, and I really appreciate all of your contributions. And I was a bit afraid how it's going to be throughout the Zoom, but I kind of felt all this warmth and the excitement, and I hope that it also stayed with you. So I would just like to thank to everybody, and so hopefully we will get across each other's practices somewhere else, and hopefully there will be also some chance to see each other in person.
Go for a dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Yura.
Bye. Museum of Impossible Forms, thank you as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.